I came home after a 35-hour shift at the hospital and saw a second fridge in the kitchen. My son looked up from his phone and said, indifferent, "That one's mine, Mom. From now on, buy your own food." He had put labels with his name on everything I bought, forgetting that he was living in this house without paying a single cent of rent. So I prepared a surprise that would make him wake up in tears. I had just gone through 35 continuous hours at the hospital. 35 hours saving lives, holding trembling hands, cleaning wounds that weren't mine. My feet burned inside those white shoes that used to be new. My back ached like every muscle was being pulled tight. My hands smelled of disinfectant, and that exhaustion had sunk deep into my bones, the kind that comes when you're no longer young. I'm 62 years old. I'm a nurse, and I once thought the hardest part of my life was over. I was wrong. When I opened the kitchen door, the kitchen I had cleaned 1,000 times, where I had cooked every one of my son's birthdays, where I had cried for my husband's death, I saw something that didn't belong there. A new, shiny black refrigerator stood right beside my old silver one. I froze at the doorway, my bag still hanging from my shoulder, trying to understand what was happening. Why were there two fridges in the same kitchen? Our old one still worked perfectly. Then I heard his voice. "Jason, my only son." "That's mine," he said, calm and unapologetic. "From now on, buy your own food." I turned around. He was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes cold, his face blank, as if he were saying something completely reasonable. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice rough after nearly 2 days of speaking only to patients. He shrugged and pointed toward my old fridge. "I labeled everything, Mom. You'll see, just so it's clear." I opened the fridge. A breath of cold air hit my chest. Everything I had bought 3 days ago, cheese, tomatoes, yogurt, beans, chicken, even the butter, had bright yellow stickers with the name Jason written in black marker. "What is this?" I whispered. "What I said," he replied, his tone light. "That's my food. You buy yours. It's not fair that I have to share what I buy with my own money." His own money. Jason hadn't worked for almost a year. He had been fired from a tech company and was living off the joint credit card I opened to help him. I paid for gas, insurance, groceries, emergencies, and now he was telling me to buy my own food. "Jason," I tried to keep my voice steady, but my throat tightened. He looked at me with that distant, tired stare, eyes that once looked at me with love when he was a boy, now filled only with annoyance. "Mom, don't make a scene. Everyone should have their own things. It's cleaner, more organized." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "But I paid for the groceries this week," I said softly. "And that's why my name's on them, right?" he replied, pointing at the stickers, his voice even. "Now it's clear. Everyone knows what belongs to whom." I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip off every yellow sticker and throw them in his face, but I was too tired, too exhausted to waste breath on anger. I just nodded, turned away, and walked back to my room. The door closed behind me, the sound of the hinge echoing like a final period. For the first time in years, I sat on the edge of my bed and let the truth sink in. He was living in my house, the 2-story home in Plano I bought with my nurse's salary after my husband died, leaving me nothing but debt and a son with chronic asthma. I had worked double shifts, triple shifts. I scrubbed hospital floors at 3 a.m. to pay the mortgage. I skipped meals so Jason could have his medicine. And now he was charging me for eating in my own kitchen. I took off my shoes. My feet were swollen and red, a new blister forming on my left heel. I couldn't even remember when it appeared, but I knew from that moment on nothing would ever be the same again. I heard laughter from the living room. Jason was watching TV. The microwave beeped, and the smell of buttered popcorn filled the house, the same popcorn I used to make for him when he was little. Now I couldn't eat it because every bag had a label that said, Jason. I closed my eyes. In the silence of my room, in that darkness, something inside me began to shift. I didn't know what it was yet. I only knew that night, the night of exhaustion and humiliation, was the last night I would ever let my son treat me like a guest in my own home. Because sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's just the calm before the storm. And anyone who's ever been in this position knows The storm doesn't come from outside. It begins inside you. 3 days later, I came home from another hospital shift. This one was only 12 hours, but it felt like 12 hours of hell. A little girl with severe burns, an old man who died while I held his hand because there was no one else left to hold it. I came home wanting nothing but a cup of hot tea and a few minutes of peace, but when I stepped into the bathroom, what I saw made my heart clench. Yellow labels, everywhere. On the shampoo bottle, the soap, the toothpaste, even the toilet paper. Each one with Jason scrawled in black marker. I froze, staring at my toothbrush, the only thing without a label, as if it were the last thing I was still allowed to own in this house. I walked out of the bathroom and went straight to the kitchen. The pots, the pans, the glasses, the plates, every single one had a label. I opened the cutlery drawer. Even the forks had labels. The damn forks. I was staring at them when I heard a voice behind me. "Looking for something, Mom?" Jason stood in the doorway, holding a cup of coffee. I hadn't heard him come in. "Jason," I said, my throat tight, "this has gone too far." He shrugged, a small smirk forming, a smile that never reached his eyes. "I'm just protecting my stuff, Mom. You know how it is. Things get lost, get mixed up. It's better if everyone just puts their name on what's theirs. No arguments that way. All these pots and pans, I bought them 20 years ago. Then you should put your name on them too. I already put mine on what's mine." I looked at him. "And what exactly have you bought?" The words came out sharper than I intended. His eyes narrowed. "Watch your tone, Katherine. I'm your son. I deserve respect." Respect. That word echoed in my head as he turned and walked back to the living room. The TV grew louder. Jason sat back down, eating his popcorn as if nothing had happened. That night, he cooked. The smell of food spread through the house. Chili beef stew, the same recipe I taught him when he first graduated, when we were still on the same side. I stayed in my room, stomach empty. All I'd had that day was coffee. I thought about going out to get some, but I couldn't. Not after those labels. Not after realizing that every bite from that kitchen now meant something else. Every bite was humiliation. The TV stayed on. I heard Jason talking on the phone to someone, a young man's voice, probably an old friend. "I'm thinking of selling my mom's car, to cover some credit card debt. The old Cadillac. She barely drives it." My heart tightened. He was talking about the car Robert left me. I didn't hear the rest, only laughter, then a door closing. The next morning, I woke up early. I had the day off. I planned to talk to him directly when no one else was around. Jason was in the kitchen, drinking coffee from my coffee maker, now with a yellow label stuck to its side. "Son," I said slowly, "we need to talk." He looked up, eyes shadowed, looking older than his 36 years. "Mom, if this is about the labels..." "It's not just about the labels, Jason," I cut him off. "It's about everything. The way you talk to me, the way you treat me. This is my house." "I know. Do you really, Jason? Because it doesn't look that way to me." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "You don't pay rent, you don't pay utilities, you don't pay property tax, nothing. And now I can't even use my own soap." He rubbed his face, his tone curt. "Mom, I don't want to argue. If you don't like how things are going, maybe you should think about finding your own place." The world stopped. I stared at my son, trying to believe I had misheard him. My own place? I don't mean it badly, but I'm an adult. I need my own space, my privacy. I can't keep worrying whether you're uncomfortable with how I arrange the house. I looked straight into his eyes. "My house, Jason. This is my house." "I know. Legally it is. You don't have to remind me," he said sharply. "But it's also where I live. You're stuck in old ways of thinking, Mom. You don't understand what a modern family looks like." I stood up, said nothing. Not a single word. I walked back to my room, opened the closet, and pulled out a box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were photographs. Jason as a child, Jason with his inhaler, those wide eyes looking at me in fear every time his asthma flared up. Jason at his high school graduation, at his first communion, in the hospital after the surgery that saved his life when he was 11. That surgery had cost nearly $280,000, and I managed it by selling my car and working in 2 hospitals at once. I ran my fingers gently across the photos, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel love. I felt something else. Colder, clearer. My son had just told me I should leave the house I bought with money earned from nights spent caring for other people's pain, while he slept soundly in a room cooled by air conditioning, believing his mother would never let him fall. I put the box away. That evening, Jason cooked again. The smell filled the house, beef stew with chili, the same scent I taught him to season when he was in college. I sat in my room, stomach hollow. I'd only had coffee all day at the hospital. I thought about walking out to get some food, but I couldn't. Not after those labels. Not after realizing that every bite from that kitchen now meant humiliation. I heard his voice from the living room, cheerful. "Yeah, I'm thinking of selling Mom's car, the old Cadillac. She barely drives it." I froze. He was talking about the car Robert left me. I didn't hear the rest, only laughter, then the TV turning up louder. The next morning, I woke up early. I had the day off. I needed to talk to him directly when it was just the 2 of us. Jason was in the kitchen, drinking coffee from my coffee maker, now with a yellow label stuck on its side. "Son," I said, "we need to talk." He looked up, eyes sunken, tired. "If this is about the labels again..." "It's not just the labels, Jason, it's everything. The way you talk to me, the way you treat me. This is my house." I sat down, hands clasped, my voice slow and steady. "You don't have to pity me. But don't forget, it was me who paid every dollar for this roof over our heads." I don't know what rose up inside me at that moment, but when I looked at his indifferent face, something in me snapped awake. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, listening to the TV in the living room, listening to his laughter. And inside me, a plan began to take shape. Because if 39 years as a nurse have taught me anything, it's that pain doesn't heal by covering it up. It only heals when you cut away what's already rotten. And in this house, something had truly rotted. 2 days later, it began. Saturday. I decided to clean, not because the house needed it, but because I needed to do something with my hands, something to remind myself I still had control over at least one small corner of my life. Jason said he was going out to look at some apartments. I didn't ask which ones. I didn't ask any more. I started with the living room, then the bathroom. When I stopped in front of Jason's door, I hesitated. That room had been his since he was 8 years old, its walls painted light blue because it was his favorite color. I opened the door. The air smelled faintly of sweet cologne, no longer the scent of the boy who once ran around the yard smelling of soap and dirt. I started cleaning, folding clothes, making the bed, wiping the desk. Then I saw the nightstand drawer slightly open. I wasn't going to open it. I really wasn't. But the afternoon light came through the window and reflected off something inside. I bent down. Papers. A messy pile. Bills, photos, snapshots of Jason at bars, at fancy restaurants, by Lake Austin. All recent. All taken during the time he said he was looking for work. And I kept going through them, not even sure what I was looking for, until I saw a thick brown envelope with Jason's handwriting on it. Mom. Important documents. I picked it up, my hands trembling. Inside were the house papers, the original deeds I had kept in my filing cabinet. How did he get them? Beneath that stack was another sheet. A debt note. The notarized document was dated 2 years ago, a loan for $450,000. Borrower, Jason Whitmore. Lender, Katherine Whitmore, widow of Robert Whitmore. Purpose, seed investment for an auto parts import company. I remembered everything. 2 years earlier, Jason had come to the house with a bright look on his face. He said there was a big opportunity. A friend in the engineering industry invited him to invest in importing car components from California. He told me it was a life-changing chance, that it only needed $450,000 to get started. I had that money. The savings I'd built over 10 years, my retirement fund, the money that would let me stop working when these hands could no longer hold the tools. But he was my son, my only child. I'll pay you back in 6 months with interest. You'll see. We signed in front of a notary. So you know I'm serious, he said. But that business never worked out. The friend disappeared with part of the money. Jason never mentioned the loan again, and I never asked about it, because I was his mother. And a mother doesn't demand back what she gave out of love, right? I turned the pages in the envelope. There were bank statements, an account in Jason's name opened 6 months earlier, regular deposits of $15,000 to $20,000 each month. Where did that money come from when he said he was unemployed? At the bottom was a folded sheet. I opened it. It was a printout of emails between Jason and Brianna, his ex-girlfriend I knew he'd dated. I talked to the broker company, Jason wrote. They say your Plano house could sell for $3.2 million. Jason, that's a lot, she replied. Exactly, babe, he answered. Mom won't live forever. When she's gone, the house will naturally be mine. Jason, don't say that. Just being practical. Why wait? Let's convince her to sell early. Tell her it's to move to a smaller, easier-to-care-for place. She keeps $800,000. We take the rest and start our new life in Colorado. You think she'll agree? She will. She loves him. And if not, there are other ways. Make her tired of staying. Make her feel she can't manage anymore. Then she'll beg you for help. You're cruel. 2 months, then she'll sign. Trust me. The email was dated 3 months ago, and 2 weeks after that the yellow labels started to appear. I let the papers fall and sat on the edge of my son's bed. My hands were shaking, not from fear but from anger. Pure, dense anger rose from my gut into my throat. They had planned it. Step by step, every word, every yellow sticker, every crack in my heart, everything was part of the plan. And Jason, the child I once saved, was the one who wrote that plan. I grabbed my phone and photographed every page, the promissory note, the bank statements, the emails, the house deeds, everything. I put them back exactly where they had been, closed the drawer, and went down to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water. My hands shook so badly, the water spilled across the counter. I looked around. 2 refrigerators, yellow labels, the gleaming metal kitchen. The house I bought with pain, with night shifts, with knees worn out from 12-hour shifts standing nonstop. The house where I raised my son alone after Robert died. And now, that son wanted to sell it, to leave, to go away with someone else. I wiped the tears I hadn't realized I was shedding. In that moment, something inside me shattered, but not downward. It broke forward. Because forgiveness is one thing, being a fool is another. I had been foolish long enough. I opened my browser and typed, Real Estate Attorney Dallas. A list came up. I chose the first 5-star review, Attorney Grant Monroe. His office was downtown, a 10-minute drive from the hospital where I worked. I dialed. A woman's voice answered, Monroe Law Offices, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My voice was calm, surprisingly calm. I need an urgent appointment. I want to protect my property and possibly evict someone from my home. No, it's my son. There was a short silence on the other end of the line. I see. When can you come in? Tomorrow, if possible. Let me check. Yes, we have an opening at 11 a.m. I'll be there. I hung up, and right then I heard the front door open. They were home. Mom, I'm back, Jason called out, his voice light, cheerful, the kind of tone he only used when things were going his way. Did you cook anything? I took a deep breath, wiped my sweaty palms, and stepped out of the kitchen with a faint smile. You two still don't want me to make anything for you? Jason looked a little confused. Anything's fine, Mom. Good, I said evenly. I'll make some eggs. Won't take long. He nodded, eyes cautious. Of course, these past few days I had barely spoken, barely left my room. But now I smiled, because I knew something he didn't. Wars aren't won by the one who shouts the loudest. They're won by the one who strikes when the enemy stops paying attention. That evening I cooked dinner for them, set the table, even washed the dishes. Jason watched me, suspicious. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm perfectly fine, son," I said, calm but firm. "I've been thinking. Maybe you two were right. I've been too tense. I'm sorry for that." Jason smiled, the same smile he always wore when he thought he'd won. "I'm glad you understand, Mom. In the end, we all just want what's best for the family, right?" "Of course," I replied, looking straight into his eyes. "What's best for the family?" I went upstairs, closed the door, and for the first time in weeks, I slept deeply. Because tomorrow, the battle would begin, and he didn't even know he had already lost. The next morning at exactly 11, I sat across from Attorney Grant Monroe in his downtown Dallas office. The room was bright, faintly scented with coffee and new paper. On the wall hung his law degree beside a framed photo with the city's mayor. He had salt and pepper hair, thin glasses, and a calm, steady voice. "Tell me everything, Mrs. Whitmore. No rush." And I did. Every detail. The yellow labels, the emails, the unpaid loan, the house in my name, every little thing. He took notes carefully, occasionally nodding. When I finished, he removed his glasses and looked at me seriously. "Do you have evidence of all this?" "Yes. I have photos of the messages, the notarized loan document, copies of the house deed. Everything's under my name, and they don't pay rent, not a cent." "What about utilities?" "I pay them all. Electricity, water, gas, internet, property tax." He nodded slowly. "Legally, you have full rights. This property is yours. No lease, no payment, they're occupants without ownership. You can file for eviction." He paused, his voice softer. "But he's your son. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" I stayed silent. I thought of the yellow labels, the debt papers, the words that said I was old, that I should leave. "I'm sure," I said. My voice was so calm it surprised even me. "Good," he replied. "I'll need you to sign a notarized power of attorney. We'll begin the process immediately. It may take a few weeks, but we can expedite it if they refuse to cooperate." He opened a file, flipped a few pages. "We can also pursue repayment of the loan with interest. Based on my calculations, your son owes roughly $620,000. I froze. "That much?" "Accrued interest, ma'am. And it's a notarized loan. You have every right to collect." I signed. My hand trembled slightly, but it was steady enough. I put the pen down and looked at my name, Katherine Whitmore, on the paper, as if seeing a part of myself return. I paid the retainer fee, $4,500, the amount I'd set aside for emergencies. And this was an emergency. When I stepped out of the office, the Texas sun flashed against the pavement, blinding bright. Inside me rose a strange feeling, fear and relief intertwined, like someone who'd just jumped out of a plane, unsure if the parachute would open, but knowing there was no turning back. That night, I came home later than usual. I stopped by the supermarket, bought groceries of my own, the kind I could label if I ever needed to. When I opened the door, I heard voices coming from the living room, several unfamiliar ones. I stepped in and froze. Brianna's parents, Mr. Harold and Mrs. Diane Carter, were sitting comfortably on my sofa, talking as if this were their house. "Oh, the mother-in-law's home," Mrs. Diane said, her thin smile never reaching her eyes. "Good evening," I replied softly. "Katherine," Brianna called, "come here, sit down." She pointed to the only armchair in the living room while they occupied the entire sofa. I sat down. What else could I do? "Mrs. Whitmore," Mr. Harold began, his voice deep and rough like an old engine. "We're here because there's something we need to discuss, something important, as a family." "As a family?" "Brianna has told us about the situation," he continued. "We understand it's difficult for you, but you should be reasonable." "Reasonable about what?" I asked, my voice calm. "About the living space," Mrs. Diane interrupted. "This house is large, yes, but 3 adults living together easily causes friction. The kids need privacy, need to start their own life, and you're in a different stage of life now." I felt the blood in my body start to boil. "Don't get us wrong," Mr. Harold said. We just think it would be best for everyone if you consider your options." "What options?" Brianna leaned forward, her voice sweet as honey. "There are some very nice communities for older adults here in Texas, Katherine. Places with health care, with activities, with friends your age." "A nursing home," I said evenly. "Not exactly," Jason added quietly. "They're more like retirement resorts, Mom. There's one in Richardson, just 30 minutes away. We already went to see it. It's beautiful." "You already went to see it?" I repeated, my voice turning cold. "Without me?" The room fell silent. "We wanted it to be a surprise," Brianna said quickly. "Look, I even took pictures." She held out her phone. The screen showed a beige building, an oak tree in the yard, elderly people sitting in wheelchairs under the sunlight. I looked at the picture and saw myself there, small, unnecessary, waiting for the end. "And this house?" I asked. Jason scratched his head. "We'd stay here, later, maybe sell it, buy something smaller." "Later," I repeated. "Yes, later," Brianna continued. "What's important is that you'll be well cared for, and we can build our future." "And who will pay for this senior community?" I asked. Silence. Then Brianna spoke. "You have your pension from the hospital, and if you sell your car, you can cover the first few months. After that, we'll figure it out." "My car?" "The SUV I bought 5 years ago, the only gift I ever gave myself. And if I sell the car, how do I get to work? I'm still working, in case you forgot." "Oh, Katherine," Mrs. Diane sighed. "At your age, you should be thinking about resting, enjoying life." "I'm 62, not 80, I replied, my voice hardening. "But you're overworking," Brianna said in that overly sweet tone. "You're tired. You need rest. Wouldn't that be better?" I looked at my son. He avoided my eyes, staring at the floor. "Is that what you want, Jason? You want me to go?" He looked up. Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt. Maybe shame. "Mom, we just want what's best for you." "What's best for me?" I stood up. "Or what's best for you?" "Don't make a scene," Brianna snapped. "No, I'm just asking," I said slowly. "What do you gain if I leave?" Jason spoke up, louder than necessary. "You'll have peace, you'll be cared for, you won't have to worry about cleaning this big house." "The house that I bought." "Oh, that again," Brianna scoffed. "Yes, it's your house, but it's also where your son lives." "What now? Are you going to throw your own son out?" Brianna jumped up, her voice sharp and high. "Brianna, calm down," Mr. Harold said. But she shook her head, her eyes flashing with anger. "I can't calm down anymore. I'm done with this." She turned toward me. "Since the day I moved into this house, I've tried to get along with you, but you always play the victim. Everything always has to go your way." I looked at her, my voice steady. "This house is mine." "It's not just yours anymore, Katherine," she shot back. "You're not the only one living here. If you can't accept that, maybe you should think about moving out." The room went silent. I turned to Jason. "You think that too?" He rubbed his face. "Mom, I think Brianna's right. You can't control everything forever. Yes, you bought the house, but this is my home too, and I have a right to build my own life with my wife." "Your own life?" I felt something inside my chest crack, a thin, deep fracture. "And what am I then? A burden?" "No one said that," Mrs. Diane interjected. "No need to say it," I replied quietly. I turned away and walked up the stairs. Behind me I heard Brianna's voice, low and mocking. "She's mad. She'll cool off tomorrow." Then laughter, light, hollow laughter, as if all of this were some kind of joke. I went into my room, locked the door, and this time I cried. I cried harder than I had in years. I cried for the son whose fever I had watched through endless nights, for the shifts I had worked at Parkland Hospital, for every dollar I had saved, hoping he'd have a better life. I cried until there were no tears left. Then I washed my face and looked into the mirror. My eyes were swollen, dark rings underneath, but in my gaze there was something new, clarity. I picked up my phone, opened my contacts, found the name Grant Monroe, and typed, "Attorney, Please proceed with everything. I want them out of my house as soon as possible. The reply came only seconds later. Understood, Mrs. Whitmore. We'll file the motion tomorrow morning. I set the phone down and lay on my bed. Before closing my eyes, I whispered into the dark, "Forgive me, Jason, but I can't save you from yourself anymore." 3 days later, everything began to change. I acted normal. Too normal. I said good morning, made coffee, fixed my own breakfast, didn't complain even when I still saw those stupid yellow labels. I went to work, came home, stayed in my room. Brianna looked at me with confusion, sometimes frowning as if trying to guess what had shifted. Jason avoided me completely, left early, came home late. When we crossed paths on the stairs, he turned away. Fine. Let them think I had surrendered, that I was accepting my fate as an old woman moving into a senior community. But at night, when they slept, I worked. I observed. I listened. I remembered. I learned their habits. Brianna slept late, showered in my master bathroom, now with a new lock on the outside, then went out, sometimes to the salon, sometimes to meet friends at cafes. She came home with shopping bags from Macy's, Zara, Nordstrom, things I had never bought for myself. Jason left early, said he was job hunting, but came home smelling of beer and cigarettes, his eyes dull and red. One Tuesday night, while they were watching a movie downstairs, I quietly entered their room. This time, I knew what I was looking for. I opened the dresser drawer, went through their clothes. Nothing. I knelt, checked under the bed. Shoe boxes. I opened them one by one. In the third box, I found what I needed. A thin folder, updated bank statements from last month, regular transfers of $18,000 every 2 weeks. From where, when they claimed to have no jobs? I kept searching. There were receipts from fine restaurants in Legacy West, from a bar in uptown Dallas, and one hotel receipt, Marriott downtown. A hotel. Why would they need a hotel when they lived here? Then I saw a sealed envelope. I opened it. Inside was a brochure from a real estate company, Silver Creek Realty, new luxury condos in Frisco, starting at $1.9 million, a 3-bedroom unit circled in red, $2.8 million. On the last page, Brianna's handwriting. Sell mom's house for around 2.5 M. Let her keep $800K. We'll have 1.7 M left. Borrow another 1.1 M. Makes 2.8 NOS. Perfect. $800,000, the price of betrayal, written in red ink. I took pictures of everything, the bank statements, the real estate brochure, the hotel receipt. Then I put it all back exactly where I'd found it. When I stepped out of the room, the TV was still on in the living room. Brianna laughed loudly at something on the show. I went straight upstairs, uploaded all the photos to my laptop, backed them up to the cloud, and did something I never thought I'd do. I wrote to Martha. Martha was my colleague at Dallas General Hospital. We had worked together for almost 20 years. She'd known Jason since he was a little boy, tagging along to the hospital when I worked night shifts. "Martha, I need your help with something," I typed. "Do you know anyone who can trace where these bank transfers came from?" Only a few minutes later, she replied, "My husband used to work as an accountant for the IRS. Send me the info. I'll ask him in the morning." I sent her all the photos of the statements. The next morning, during my break, Martha called. Her voice was low and urgent. "Kate, your son is in serious trouble." I sat up straight. "What kind of trouble?" "Those deposits came from a shell company, one that issues fake invoices for transactions that never existed. That's tax fraud." I felt the blood in my veins go cold. If the IRS finds out, he could face heavy fines or criminal charges. I swallowed hard. "Does he know?" "Yes, his name's on the receiving account, and his signature is on the invoices. He can't claim ignorance." I thanked her and hung up. My hands were shaking. My son was involved in something illegal. That evening, I got home early, planning to talk to him privately. But as soon as I stepped inside, I heard raised voices from the kitchen. "I told you to be more discreet," Jason said, his voice tight. "Don't talk to me like that," Brianna snapped back. "It's not my fault your mother can't mind her own business." "What happened?" Jason demanded, voice low. "Nothing. I just saw her looking at my phone the other day. I'm sure of it. When I came out of the bathroom, the phone had been moved. "You're imagining things." "No, I'm not. She knows something. I can feel it." Silence. "What could she possibly know?" Jason asked, but his voice trembled. "I don't know, but we need to move fast. Talk to her. Convince her to sell the house now, or transfer it to your name. Do something. The longer we wait, the riskier it gets." "I can't push her anymore. She's already angry." "Then find a way," Brianna said, her tone hard. "Because if this all falls apart, Jason, I'm gone. I didn't come here to live forever with your mother. I came because you promised me a life, an apartment, travel, a future. Right now, all I have are a bunch of yellow labels on food that isn't even mine. I love you, Bree. Love doesn't pay the bills. Money does." I stepped back, my heart pounding. I went upstairs, closed my door, and forced myself to breathe. Now I had every piece of the puzzle. The illegal money, the plan to sell my house, the scheme to drive me out. Everything fit together perfectly. I opened my laptop and started a new file. I began writing a timeline. Each day, each piece of evidence, each lie, each yellow label. I organized it like a patient chart. Cold, detailed, precise. I turned my pain into documentation. By dawn, I had printed 3 copies. One for Attorney Monroe, one for myself, and one for when the time was right. I showered, got dressed, brewed coffee. When I came downstairs, Jason was already in the kitchen. His eyes were sunken, his stubble uneven. "Good morning," I said softly. He looked up, startled. "Morning, Mom." I sliced bread, poured black coffee, added a few pieces of fruit. He watched me without blinking. "Are you okay?" I heard him ask. I looked straight into his eyes. "Perfectly fine, son. Why?" "I don't know. You just seem different." I smiled. "I slept well. That's all." A lie. I hadn't slept a minute, but he didn't need to know that. I finished my breakfast, washed the dishes, picked up my purse. "I'm heading to the hospital. I'll be home tonight." "Jason," I called as he stopped me at the door. "Mom, about the other day, about that senior community thing," he said, his voice smaller now. "You don't have to decide right away." "I know," I replied calmly. "Don't worry." I walked to my car. Before starting the engine, I dialed Attorney Grant Monroe. "Mr. Monroe, this is Katherine Whitmore. I have new information. I believe my son is involved in something illegal. I have proof." "Come to my office today if you can," he said. "I'll be there," I answered. I drove through the sun-bleached streets of Plano, Texas, light cutting across the windshield, glinting off my hands on the wheel. For the first time in months, I felt something I thought I'd lost. Strength. I was no longer the old woman who endured everything in the name of love. I was a lioness guarding her territory. And no one was going to drive this lioness from her den. But what was coming wouldn't just drive them out of my house, it would make them bow their heads. Thursday. I came home after a 14-hour shift at the hospital. 2 cardiac emergencies. 1 man didn't make it. I held his wife's hand as she asked, "Why would God take my husband?" I had no answer. I only wiped her tears. When I left the hospital, my whole body felt broken. My back, my knees, even my spirit. All I wanted was a hot shower and sleep. But when I opened my front door, the smell of food hit me. Roast chicken, potatoes, butter, the kind of smell that makes you forget exhaustion. I stepped into the kitchen and froze. My fridge was wide open. Empty, completely empty. Beside the trash can was a black garbage bag stuffed with familiar things: yogurt, cold cuts, tomatoes, butter, cheese, all the food I'd bought 2 days earlier. "What is this?" I whispered. "Oh, you're home," Brianna said, walking in and wiping her hands with a napkin. She wore a new, expensive dress. The tag still dangled from the collar. "I had to throw your food out." "What did you say?" "It went bad," she replied flatly. "Smelled awful. Contaminated my fridge. That food was fine. I just bought it." "Well, I could smell it spoiling," she shrugged. "Besides, Katherine, I told you already. If you want to keep your food, get your own fridge, like me." I stared at the trash bag. My entire week's worth of meals sat in there. $200 gone. Something in me snapped. Not loudly, just a string pulled too tight, finally breaking. "Where's Jason?" I asked. "In the living room. Why?" I didn't answer. I walked in. Jason was sprawled across the sofa, phone in hand, 3 empty beer bottles on the table. "Jason." He looked up, eyes dull. "What, Mom?" "Your wife just threw all my food in the trash." "Yeah, she told me. It was spoiled." It wasn't. "Mom," he sighed. "If Brianna says it was, it was. She knows about that stuff." "She knows?" I felt my voice tremble. "I've cooked for 40 years, Jason." "You think I don't know when food's gone bad?" "Don't start again?" He stood up, swaying a little. He was drunk. "I'm tired of your drama, Mom." "My drama?" The words cut like glass. "My drama, Jason? $200 worth of food thrown away. Money I earned working night shifts while you sit here drinking beer I paid for." "You didn't pay for this beer. Brianna bought it." "With what money, Jason? Where does Brianna get money if she doesn't work?" "That's none of your business." "It is my business. You both live in my house, eat my food, use my electricity, my water." "Enough!" he shouted. For the first time in years, my son yelled in my face. "I'm sick of it. It's always my house, my money." "We get it. You're the great martyr who sacrificed everything. I'm tired of feeling like I owe you, tired of feeling guilty just for being alive. I didn't ask to be born, Mom. I didn't ask for Dad to die." "That's my decision, not yours." The room fell into a heavy silence. Brianna appeared at the doorway, a small, triumphant smile on her lips. I looked at my son, 36 years old, eyes red from alcohol and anger, and I didn't recognize him. The little boy who once clung to my leg during nightmares. The teenager who brought me flowers on Mother's Day with his first paycheck. The young man who sat quietly beside my bed when I was sick. All of them were gone. Now, before me stood a stranger who looked at me with contempt. "All right," I said softly, almost in a whisper. "All right." I turned away, went upstairs, into my room, locked the door, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Not because of age or illness, my lungs still worked, but somewhere deeper inside, something had closed. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding my phone with trembling hands. I called my sister Elaine. She lived in Austin. We didn't see each other often, but we were always there when it mattered. "Kate, what's going on?" her worried voice asked. I looked at the clock, 10 p.m., and then I broke down. I told her everything. The labels, the messages, the loan, the food thrown away, Jason's words. She listened silently, without interrupting. When I finished, there was only the sound of her sigh on the other end. "Kate," she said finally, her voice firm, "you have to throw him out. He's my son. He's ungrateful, and that woman is poison. If you don't do something, they'll strip you of everything, and when they're done, they'll leave you with nothing. No house, no money, nothing." "But—" "No buts, sister. You love him, I know, but love can't be blind. Sometimes love means letting someone fall. That's the only way they learn." I started crying. "You don't understand, Elaine. I can't do that to him." "Then be ready to lose everything, because that's exactly what will happen." She hung up. I sat in the dark, phone still in my hand. For the first time, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. What if I left? What if I walked away from this house, gave it to them, just to avoid the storm? I could rent a small apartment in Garland, keep working until retirement, die in peace, without tearing my family apart. At first, the thought sounded almost comforting. But then I remembered. I remembered the day I bought this house. Jason was 12. We had been renting a small room in Dallas for 2 years. I worked 2 jobs, saved every dollar for 5 years. The day I signed the papers, I came home crying from joy. "Son," I said, "we have a house now. A real house. No one can take it from us." He hugged me, his hair smelling like soap, his little voice saying, "No one, Mom, even if you don't pay rent?" No one, because this house belongs to you and me. I opened my eyes. A house for me and my son, not for Brianna, not for her parents, not for anyone else. Mine. I stood up, wiped my tears, opened the nightstand drawer, and took out the folder where I kept all the evidence, photos, and documents. I took another folder, the original deed I had taken back from Jason's drawer and hidden carefully. I opened it. My name was there. Katherine Whitmore, sole owner. I ran my fingers across the letters. 40 years of work, 40 years of sacrifice, 40 years of sleepless nights in hospital rooms, all of it written on this paper. No one can take it from me. I picked up my phone and opened the chat with Grant Monroe. I typed, "Mr. Monroe, I need to meet first thing tomorrow. We're speeding everything up." The reply came almost instantly. "What happened, Mrs. Whitmore?" "I'm done waiting. I want them out of my house next week." "Understood. I'll prepare the documents tomorrow morning." I set the phone down. This time I didn't cry. The tears were gone. What replaced them was something cold, solid, and clear. Jason thought I was weak, that I would keep enduring, but he had forgotten one thing. She had forgotten that women who raise children alone, work 3 jobs, endure pain, and still stand, we do not collapse. We transform. And when someone touches what we love most, we become ruthless. Jason was about to relearn a lesson I had taught him as a child. Every action has consequences, and his consequences were only just beginning. Friday morning, 8 o'clock, I sat across from attorney Grant Monroe in his downtown Dallas office. This time my hands did not shake. I did not cry. I was steady as stone. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said, calm, "I have everything prepared." He pushed a thick file toward me. "This is the eviction notice. This is the suit for unpaid loan, $37,500 plus interest. And this," he added another sheet, "is a claim for emotional damages and misuse of property. We value that at about $10,000. "Emotional damages?" I asked. "You have suffered systematic psychological abuse right inside your own home," he answered. "That has legal weight. If we take this to court, we could seek more, but I must warn you, it will be slow, painful, and public." "How long?" I asked. 6 months, maybe a year." I shook my head. "I don't have a year. I need them out now." He leaned back, steepling his fingers. "There is another way. We confront them directly, show them the evidence, make the choice clear. Either leave peacefully, or we destroy them legally. With the documents you have, especially the dubious money flows, your son could face criminal charges." The word charges stabbed my chest. "I don't want him to go to jail." "I know," he nodded, "but he doesn't have to know that. Fear is stronger than any trial. If he believes he could lose his freedom, he will cooperate. If not, we proceed. No mercy." He looked at me. "Mrs. Whitmore, I understand. That is your son. But if you don't set boundaries now, they will destroy you. They will sell your house and leave you on the street." I closed my eyes, breathed in. "Do it. But I want to be there when they're told." "Are you sure?" "Completely sure." I signed, page by page, eviction notice, complaint, all of it. He carefully placed them into brown envelopes and sealed them with a red stamp. "When would you like them served?" he asked. "Tomorrow morning, Saturday. When they are at home, relaxed, confident," I said. He nodded slowly. 10 a.m. tomorrow I will come with the constable. Will you be there?" "I will be there." I left the office and drove back to Plano. Texas sunlight glinted off the windshield, gold and metallic. I arrived home earlier than usual. Brianna sat in the living room, red nail polish bright against her fingers. Jason was slumped on the sofa, a 4th empty beer on the table. "Hello," I said. Brianna barely glanced up, lips tight. "Hi." I went upstairs, not to hide, this time to prepare. I opened the closet, pulled out the old brown leather suitcase, and began packing the things I valued most: documents, photographs, a few changes of clothes, my nurse's uniform, things I did not want them to touch. I hid the suitcase under the bed. Then I opened my mother's little wooden box, the only thing she had left me. Inside were a few pieces of jewelry, a gold ring, a pair of wedding earrings, a thin chain, and a faded photograph. Robert, my husband, holding Jason as a baby, both of them smiling. I looked at it a long time. "Forgive me, Robert," I whispered. "I know you wanted me to care for our son, but perhaps now that means letting him fall. Let him learn." I replaced the photo and closed the box. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept without nightmares, without tears. There was nothing left to decide. The decision had been made. And on Saturday morning, I woke at exactly 7 o'clock. 3 hours after Attorney Monroe left, the house sank into a heavy, viscous silence. I sat on the bed and listened. Rapid footsteps, a slammed door, Brianna choking on sobs, then Jason speaking frantically on the phone. After that, nothing. I went to the window and looked down the driveway. Their gray SUV was still there. They hadn't left. I waited 10 more minutes, then slowly walked down the stairs. The living room was empty. The kitchen, too. On the refrigerator door, a small piece of paper had been taped up. Jason's handwriting. "Mom, we're at Brianna's parents' house. We'll come back tomorrow to talk. Please reconsider. We're family." I tore it in two, then crumpled it and threw it straight into the trash. Family. Easy to say when it suits them. The rest of Saturday afternoon I spent cleaning. I peeled every label off every item, one by one, like stripping away a fake skin of humiliation. With each sticker removed, I felt myself breathe easier. I scrubbed the refrigerator that Brianna called hers, then threw all her groceries into the trash. The expensive perfume scent lingered around the almond milk and the cheese boxes. I tossed it all. Now she could know what it feels like to be treated as invisible. That night I slept with the door locked. Sunday morning, the Texas sky was leaden and heavy with clouds. I got up early, made coffee, and sat in the kitchen waiting. I knew they would come back, and I was right. At exactly 10, a car sounded at the gate. Doors closing. Footsteps. They came in. Jason, Brianna, and her parents. Mr. Stephen and Mrs. Marla Caldwell. Mr. Stephen walked ahead, his face flushed with anger. "Where is she?" he shouted. "I'm here." I stepped out of the kitchen. He saw me and pointed. "Who does she think she is, suing my daughter?" "I am the legal owner of this house," I said evenly, "and your daughter has crossed every line." "She did nothing wrong," he snarled. "You don't know how to live with others." "Mr. Caldwell," I said, still calm, "your daughter labeled everything in my own kitchen with her name. She threw my food away, forcing me to live like a guest in my own home. And you," I looked at Mrs. Marla, "suggested I should go to a retirement community so you could start your new life." "Nobody said that," Mrs. Marla interjected, voice sharp. "Yes," I replied, "right here in this living room 2 weeks ago." "We were only thinking of your best interest," she said, forcing a smile. "My best interest?" I laughed softly. "Selling my house for my best interest, pushing me into a care facility so they can keep everything. How is that my best interest?" Brianna suddenly shouted, "This house is worth $450,000, Mom. We don't intend to leave you with nothing." "Oh, is that so?" I nodded. $120,000 for you to give me, and $330,000 for you, just like the note you wrote on the flyer for the Dallas apartments." The room froze. "What note?" Jason asked quietly. "The note your wife wrote, with red ink, where she calculated how much would remain after selling your mother's house." Brianna lowered her head, voice weak. "We didn't plan to steal anything from you. We just planned to split it." "Split what?" I said slowly and clearly. My share? My share of my own house." Mr. Stephen interjected, voice trying to steady. "Mrs. Whitmore, look, everyone's upset. We can resolve this without court. No need to make a scene. Let's act civilized." "I don't need to resolve anything," I replied. "Don't be stubborn," he nearly yelled. "If this goes to court, everyone loses." "Not me." I looked him straight in the eye. "I have messages, documents, photos, and witnesses." I paused. "And one more thing. Something I discovered this week." Jason turned pale. "Mom, don't." Your son, I said, looking at Mr. Stephen, is receiving money from a shell company. Illegal money flows, tax evasion. Silence fell over the room instantly. That's a lie, Brianna said, but her voice trembled. Not a lie, I answered, pulling out my phone. I have bank statements. An accountant at the Dallas IRS has confirmed it. If this goes to court, everything will be exposed. Jason slumped onto the couch, his face drained white. Mom, I didn't know. A friend told me to just sign. I didn't know it was illegal. But you signed, you took the money, and you spent it, I said, my voice cold as metal wind. On hotels, at fancy restaurants, buying dresses for your wife, while you tell me you don't have money to pay the electric bill. That's enough, Brianna screamed. Enough of the pity act. You are the one destroying this family. I am not destroying anything, I answered. You two are. One label at a time, one humiliation at a time. It's just labels, Brianna shot back. It's nothing serious. It's not just labels, I yelled, for the first time in months, my voice slicing through the house like a blade freed from its sheath. It's a message that I don't matter anymore, that in my own home I am excess, that all the years I worked, every dollar I saved, every sacrifice I made, mean nothing. The room went utterly silent. No one spoke. You two have until Tuesday to leave this house, I said decisively. If not, the Collin County Police and a constable will come. All your belongings will be on the lawn for the neighbors to see. Mom, please! Jason dropped to his knees in front of me, tears running down his face. Please don't do this. I'm your son, your only son. Something in me cracked, but I did not back down. Because you are my son, Jason, and because I love you, I have to do this. I bent down so our eyes were level. I have spent my life saving you from illness, from debt, from your mistakes, and the only thing I have accomplished is making you believe there will always be someone to clean up your mess. That's not true. It is true, and you know it. I gently wiped a tear from his cheek. You are 36, unemployed, living off others. Your wife doesn't work either, and you two plan to sell my house to keep living without responsibility. Is that the life you want? That's the life we could have, Jason said, voice breaking. The life I provided you, I answered, but it ends now. I stood and looked down at him. It's time for you to grow up, son, and if that means losing you, I accept it. You are a monster, Brianna screamed. No, I said, steady as a heartbeat. I am a mother who will no longer allow herself to be used. Mr. Stephen stepped forward, his face red. This is not over. We will hire a lawyer. We will fight. Fine, I replied, calm. My lawyer is ready for you. And let me warn you, every day you remain here after Tuesday, I will add $120 per day, on top of the $37,500 loan, plus the $10,000 for emotional damages. Do the math yourselves. You have no heart, Mrs. Marlowe whispered. I used to, I answered, staring into the distance, but you broke it. All I have left is my dignity, and that no one can take. I turned and walked up the stairs. Behind me were cries, curses, pleas. I closed my door, sat on the bed, and finally the tears came. Not from sorrow, but from release. After all those years, I was free. But I did not yet know that Monday night would change everything, that I would see my son with completely different eyes. Monday was the longest day of my life. I went to the hospital early, a 12-hour shift. I needed distance. I needed air. My colleague Patricia pulled me into the coffee shop during break. Kate, you look exhausted. What's wrong? I did it, I whispered. I sued them. I evicted them. She squeezed my hand. You did the right thing. I know, I murmured, but why do I still feel so awful? After all, he's still my son. She looked at me with gentle eyes. Sometimes the only way someone learns to stand up is to let them fall. I nodded and said nothing more. I came home at 8 in the evening. The driveway was empty. Jason's car was gone. I opened the door, my heart pounding. The house was silent, but something was different. When I stepped into the living room, I saw cardboard boxes scattered everywhere, clothes neatly folded, belongings wrapped in newspaper, sealed with tape. They were packing. I climbed the stairs. Jason's door was wide open. Brianna was inside, shoving clothes into a suitcase. She looked at me, then stopped. "Happy now?" she said, her voice cold as steel. "You won. We're leaving. Isn't that what you wanted?" "I wanted respect," I answered. "That's not too much to ask." "Respect?" She let out a bitter laugh. "You're right. We're leaving. And you know what? I'm taking your son far away from here. Jason can make his own decisions." "Don't be so sure," Brianna said, folding her arms, "because I'm the one who believes in him. I see his worth. Unlike you, the woman who keeps repeating everything she's done, like it's a debt no one can ever repay." Those words hit me hard. I never made him feel— "Oh, you did," she cut in. She cut. "Every time you said, I worked, I paid, I sacrificed. Do you know how that makes someone feel? Like they'll never measure up. Like no matter what they do, it'll never be enough." I said nothing. "That's why he drinks. That's why he can't keep a job," Brianna continued, her voice trembling but sharp. "Because he's terrified of disappointing the great Katherine Whitmore, the woman who did everything alone. He'd rather not try than fail you." "That's not true." "It is," she said, her eyes flashing. "And deep down you know it, but it's easier to blame me, easier to make me the villain. The truth is, you've kept him weak and dependent, because if he ever grew up, he wouldn't need you anymore. And you need to be needed." I felt the floor slipping beneath me. "Get out of my house," I whispered. "With pleasure." Brianna grabbed her suitcase, brushing my shoulder as she passed. I stood in the hallway, listening to the wind slip through the window frame. She was right, at least in part. Some of this was my fault. I went downstairs like a ghost. In the kitchen, I sat, my hands trembling slightly. Then the front door opened. Jason walked in, alone, without Brianna. His eyes were red. "Mom, I need to talk to you." "There's nothing to—" "Please," his voice cracked. "Just listen. 5 minutes." I nodded, not looking up. He sat across from me, shoulders hunched. "You were right. About everything. I'm weak, ungrateful. A terrible son. I know that." I stayed silent. "Brianna left me," he said, his voice breaking. "She left an hour ago. She said if I didn't convince you to drop the lawsuit, she'd go. I told her I couldn't ask you that. And she left." He wiped his tears. "Her parents came for her. She told me that when I grow up and learn to take care of myself, I can call her. But as long as I'm living off you, she doesn't want to know me." A bitter ache rose in my chest. "I'm sorry," Jason went on. "I'm sorry for being weak, for being a coward. I'm sorry for yelling that I never asked to be born. That was the cruelest thing I've ever said." I felt my own tears fall. "Mom," he whispered, "I did ask to be born, because having you as my mother was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I ruined it. Jason, let me finish." He took a deep breath, summoning what courage he had left. "That money from the fake invoices, I knew it was wrong. Not at first, but later, I did. And I kept doing it, because it was easy, because Brianna wanted more, and I wanted her to see me as a man who could provide. My son, I'll pay it back. I don't know how, but I will. And I'll leave your house. Not because you forced me, but because it's right. I need to stand on my own." He looked up. "But Mom, can I stay one more week? Just one, to find a job, a place. Then I'll go." I wanted to say no, to say it was too late, that the wound had already scarred over, but he was still my son. No matter what, he was still my son. "1 week," I said slowly, "but under my rules. Any rules. No alcohol. Find work every day. Pay me a little rent, even if it's just $60 a week, and you need to start therapy." "Therapy?" Jason asked, surprised. "Yes, because Brianna was right about one thing. I said, looking straight into his eyes. You and I have things to untangle, and we can't do it alone. He was silent for a moment. All right, I'll do it. And about the loan, I said, pulling out my phone and dialing Attorney Monroe. Hello, this is Katherine. Good afternoon, Mrs. Whitmore. His steady voice came through the speaker. What would you like to update? I want to pause the lawsuit for the loan. Don't withdraw it, just suspend it for 1 week to see how things go. Are you sure? Yes. Understood. And the eviction? I looked at Jason. Pause that for 1 week, too. As you wish. I hung up. Jason stood still, eyes wet. Thank you, Mom. Prove it, I said. He nodded. He stood, then stopped at the doorway. Mom? Why? After everything I did, why give me another chance? I looked at him, and for the first time in days, I felt a faint warmth in my chest. Because that's what mothers do, son, I said softly. Not because it's easy, not because it's fair, but because real love never gives up and never lets itself be destroyed. And that's what you have to learn. Jason stood framed in the doorway, morning light spilling across his shoulder. For the first time in years, I saw the boy I used to know, the child who clung to me when he was afraid, who once promised he'd take care of his mother when he grew up. That boy was still there, buried under the weight of exhaustion and mistakes, but still there. For the first time, I felt hope. Not that everything would be fixed overnight, but that maybe not everything was lost. The next 3 days passed strangely. Jason kept his word. He woke early, printed resumes, went out looking for work. I watched him from afar, and slowly, very slowly, we began to talk again. Not about Brianna, not about the past. Just talk, like two people trying to understand each other. By Thursday, he came home with a small smile. Mom, I got a job at the hardware store on Spring Creek. Nothing big, but it's a start. I felt a simple, quiet pride rise in me. That's wonderful, son. That evening, we cooked together. I made rice, he grilled chicken, careful like he used to as a teenager. While we ate, he said something that made my heart tighten. Mom, I found a room downtown. It's small, but it fits my budget. When are you moving? Monday. That is, if you want me to go. I looked at him. What about you? Do you want to go? He nodded slowly. I think I do. I need to, because if I stay, I'll fall back into old habits. I need to learn how to live on my own, pay my own bills, take responsibility for myself. I nodded. Something inside me cracked softly, like dry wood. All right. Can I come visit you on Sundays? Always, I smiled. This will always be your home, but from now on, under different terms. He smiled back, a sad smile, but real. Thank you, Mom. And in that moment, I knew I had done the right thing, that sometimes letting a child fall is the only way they learn to fly. But what happened on Sunday, just before he left, was the true ending we both needed. Sunday morning, the Texas sun blazed bright. Jason woke early. I heard the coffee machine hum in the kitchen. When I walked downstairs, he was standing by the window, light washing over his tired but peaceful face. Good morning, I said. Good morning, Mom. He turned around. In his hand was an envelope. I need to give you this. I opened it. Inside was cash, 30 crisp $20 bills, smelling of new paper. What's this? The money I owe you for this week, he said. $60 for rent and $540 as the first payment on my debt. Jason, you don't have to— I do, he interrupted. I owe you $37,500, principal and interest. And I'll pay it all. I don't know how long it'll take. Maybe a long time. But I will. I felt my throat tighten. And I also want to give you this. He took out a folded sheet of paper and placed it on the table. This is the payment plan. I made it with an accountant I know. I'll pay you $540 every month. In 5 years and 9 months, I'll be done. I looked at the paper. Every line had a date, a signature, a column marked paid. Jason, you're 36. When you finish, you'll be 42. I know, but it's my responsibility, and I'll see it through. He looked up. Because you taught me that debts must be repaid and promises must be kept. I held the paper in my hand. It trembled slightly, as if carrying the breath of 2 generations, and in the morning light, I knew a new chapter had begun, not with forgiveness, but with growth. And I've broken a lot of promises, Mom, he said softly, but this one, I won't break. Tears streamed down my face. I pulled him into my arms, and he held me just as tightly as he did when he was little, when thunder scared him, when he had a fever and I stayed up all night watching over him. Only now, he didn't need me to save him anymore. He hugged me because he loved me, and that changed everything. That afternoon, I helped him pack the last of his things. While folding clothes, Jason said, "You know what? Brianna texted me yesterday." I looked up. What did she want? She asked if you'd dropped the lawsuit. I said no, that you were right, that I'd been stupid. He gave a faint, tired smile. She called me a loser, said I'd never amount to anything, said she hoped I'd stay trapped in your house forever. I placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry, son. Don't be, he said firmly, because she was right about one thing. I was a loser, but I don't want to be one anymore, and if becoming better means losing her, then so be it. I sat on the edge of the bed. Do you miss her? Sometimes, he said quietly. But more than her, I miss the person I thought I was when I was with her. He closed the suitcase. I used to believe I mattered, that I was successful. But it was all a lie. The money wasn't mine. The house wasn't mine. The life wasn't mine. Now, I have a tiny rented room downtown, a job at a hardware store, and a $37,500 debt. But this time, it's my life. For the first time in years, it's really mine. A quiet pride rose deep inside me. Your father would be proud of you. He went still, eyes glistening. You think so? I know so, I said, because your father made mistakes too, many of them, but he always stood back up, always kept trying, and that's exactly what you're doing. Jason nodded slowly, then whispered, Can I tell you something? Of course. For years, I hated you. Not always, but sometimes, because you were perfect, the perfect nurse, the perfect mother. Everything you did was right. And me, I was never enough. Always the weak son, the one who needed help, who cost money, who caused trouble. Then I met Brianna, and she made me feel enough. I didn't have to be perfect anymore. I could just be me. He took a deep breath. But the truth is, she didn't love me. She loved what I could give her. And when I had nothing left to give, she left. Not all women are like that, I said quietly. I know. Jason looked at me, eyes wet. Because you're not. You could have given up on me. You could have let me crash when I dragged us both down. But you didn't. You gave me one last chance, and no one else in this world would have done that. He hugged me again. In that embrace was everything: forgiveness, pain, love, and hope. By 5 p.m, the pickup truck he'd rented with a friend pulled up. Not a moving van, just an old Chevy with a tarp over the bed. We carried things together. A dismantled bed, a few boxes of clothes, some small belongings. Neighbors peeked through their windows. Mrs. Caldwell from next door came out. The boy's moving out, Kate? Yes, Mrs. Caldwell. He's getting his own place. Well, good. About time. A man's got to stand on his own 2 feet. She turned to Jason. Take care of yourself, son, and visit your mother often. She needs you. I will, Mrs. Caldwell. I promise. When we finished loading, Jason stood in front of the house, looking at it as if for the first, or maybe the last, time. "I grew up here," he said softly. "I took my first steps on that porch. I had nightmares here, and you came to comfort me. I ate breakfast here before school. For 20 years. He turned to me. "This house is my history, and I'll miss it." "It'll always be here," I said. "And so will I." "I know," he smiled faintly. "But it won't be the same, and that's okay, because that's what I need." He climbed into the truck. "See you Sunday." "Yeah, lunch, all right? I'll make your favorite." "Texas chicken and rice? Anything you want." He smiled, closed the door. The truck rolled out of the driveway, rumbling down the quiet street. I stood there on the sidewalk, watching until it turned the corner and disappeared. And when it was gone, something inside me was freed. Not the fear of losing my son, but the peace of knowing he was finally finding his own way. I cried. But not because I was sad, because I finally felt relief, because at last I had let go of my son. Not because I didn't love him, but because loving him meant letting him grow, even if it left me alone, even if it hurt. 6 months later, I sat in my small living room in Plano. The house was quiet, but it was no longer the heavy, suffocating kind of silence. Now it was peace. Jason came every Sunday, just as he'd promised. Sometimes he brought sandwiches, sometimes just coffee to go. Some Sundays, we cooked together. He told me about the hardware store, about his new manager, about how he was paying down his debt. He'd sent me nearly $1,200. Small payments, steady and consistent. Last week he said something that warmed my heart. "Mom, I met someone." I looked up. "What's her name?" "Her name's Hannah. She works at the bakery on the corner, right below my apartment." He smiled. "She's kind, not like, well, you know who." I smiled. "What does she do?" "She takes night classes, business management. She dreams of opening her own bakery someday. I like that she has her own dreams, that she doesn't need me to fix her life." "I'd like to meet her," I said. "You will. I'll bring her soon, but slowly. I do everything slowly now." And that, more than anything, made me happy. 3 months ago, Brianna came back. She showed up at the door, crying, saying she'd been wrong, that she still loved Jason, that she wanted forgiveness. But Jason looked her straight in the eyes and said something I'll never forget. "I have nothing to forgive you for. You taught me something important. Love isn't a name tag on a fridge. It's not being with someone because it's convenient. It's choosing to stay every day. And you didn't choose me. You chose my house, my credit cards, my comfort. And when those were gone, so were you. So thank you. But no." She left in tears. Jason came home and hugged me. "Thank you, Mom, for not letting me fall behind." I whispered, "I didn't do anything, son. You did it yourself." "No, Mom. You taught me, through the pain, through the lawsuit, through your strength. And that's what saved me." Today is Sunday. I'm making Texas-style beef stew, Jason's favorite. I also invited Patricia, my old colleague from the hospital, and my sister Elaine, who drove up from San Antonio. When Jason walked in, a girl was beside him, Hannah, with warm brown eyes and a shy smile. "Mom, this is Hannah." "It's so nice to meet you, Mrs. Whitmore," she said. "Jason's told me so much about you." "All good things, I hope?" I smiled. "Only good things," she said earnestly. "He told me how you saved him, not just when he was a kid, but now too." I looked at Jason. "I didn't save him. He saved himself." He shook his head. "No, Mom, you saved me by letting me fall. That was the fall I needed to wake up." We ate together. Laughter, voices, the smell of coffee, and afternoon light spilling in through the window. At that table, surrounded by my son, who had finally found his way back, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had finally done the right thing. I had loved my son enough to stop saving him. And in that act of letting go, the painful, healing kind of love, I truly did save him. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the living room. I looked around. No more labels, no more tension, no more resentment. Just a house. My house. The house I bought with my own work. The house I defended with my dignity. And I realized something. True wealth isn't in what we own. It's in what we refuse to let others take from us. Dignity, respect, self-worth. No one can steal those things unless we allow them to. And me, I will never allow it again. If this story touched you, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Like this video if you believe that sometimes love means letting go, and subscribe to hear more true stories about women who refuse to be broken. Because real strength isn't about enduring everything. It's about knowing when to say enough and standing up again and again until dignity finally belongs to you once more.